Today is Monday, October 9th, and this is the ADM Investor Services Weekly Market Kickoff. Please note that the views and opinions expressed here today are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. Today's guests are Mark Soderberg, ADMIS Senior Ag Analyst, and Alan Bush, ADMIS Senior Financial Economist. Starting with the financials this morning, Alan. Good morning. On Friday, the stock market traded sharply higher despite the hawkish ramifications of the large increase in non-farm payrolls. Why?
Yes. Well, first of all, the first reaction to the report was bearish for stock index futures because a strong employment report exerts additional pressure on the Fed to increase interest rates. However, prices quickly reversed and then actually traded sharply higher. This after a closer analysis of the large increase in the non-farm payrolls number. Traders realized that a good of those jobs were part-time jobs and not the higher quality full-time jobs. So the report was not quite as strong as the headline seemed to indicate.
Now, terrible news from the Middle East this weekend.
Yes.
What is the impact of renewed Mideast tensions on financial futures?
Well, of course, the initial reaction was for funds to flow into safe haven assets such as the US dollar and US treasuries, also to some degree the Japanese yen. And the yen is considered to be a flight to quality vehicle from time to time. But in the past, flight to quality moves do not last very long, usually from 1 to maybe 3 days. So I would not expect flight to quality moves to persist. In fact, I'm inclined to think the dollar index that will give back a good portion of the gains that it has made in the overnight trade.
And Alan, lastly, in regard to economic reports, what should traders be looking at this week?
Okay, well, first of all, tomorrow there really isn't that much, but Wednesday we'll have the September Producer Price Index, and that is anticipated to be up 0.2%, up 0.3%. Also we'll have the FOMC minutes from the September 20th meeting, and that will be released at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll have the September Consumer Price Index that's expected also to be up 0.3%. So those two are the biggest numbers and most market moving, the inflation numbers. But then on Friday, we'll have the October Consumer Sentiment Index, and that is predicted to be 67.5.
Good morning, Mark. Let's take a look at the grain markets. What impact will this weekend's attacks, same question basically, will this weekend's attacks on Israel have on global agricultural markets?
Well, unlike the situation in Ukraine, we are not faced with another war in a major agricultural producing area or exporting countries. Its biggest impact will be on the, as Alan referred to, the U.S. dollar and energy costs, more specifically the price of crude oil. That said, I look for its biggest impact in the ag space to be on soybean oil and corn, which have a higher energy correlation through its production of biofuels. Both were higher overnight as crude oil surged, however, have backed off this morning as energy prices seem to have leveled off a little bit at least. Probably, I think the wild card in all this will be if it is determined that Iran had any involvement in aiding Hamas in carrying out these attacks against Israel. Right now, Iran produces just over 3 million barrels of crude oil a day, roughly 4% of global production, with roughly 2/3 of this being exported. If international sanctions are brought against Iran as a result of this, it could have major implications on energy prices moving forward, which I would think would be beneficial to both corn and bean oil. My guess is right now reaction to this weekend's developments are somewhat muted given a major USDA report here this Thursday and ongoing harvest here in the U.S.
Good segue there, Mark. USDA report on Thursday. What are your expectations there?
My corn production forecast is 15.12 billion bushels. That's down 14 million from the USDA estimate in September. Our yield forecast is 173.6 bushels an acre. There too, just slightly below the USDA last month. Our estimates are also in line with the average trade estimate. Our carryout number is 2.165 billion bushels, which is a bit higher than the average guess because we're looking for a 50 million bushel reduction in export exports. Our soybean estimate comes in at 4.155 billion. That's up 9 million from the USDA in September. Yield forecast is 50.2 bushels an acre. Both are slightly above the USDA estimate in September. Our carryout number is at 247 million bushels. USDA was at 220 last month. We're using the same usage forecast as the USDA in September. However, we do look for a 40 million bushel shift from exports into crush, that in order to help support the surging renewable diesel production.
Last question, Mark. Can you give us a quick update on how weather may impact agricultural trade this week?
Yeah, we see good harvest being made here in the U.S. through about the middle part of the week. By Wednesday night into Thursday, there's going to be a pretty heavy band of showers starting in the western Corn Belt, northern half of Nebraska and South Dakota, really moving straight across the Midwest into Michigan. About 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rain expected across these areas, and that's going to lead to some harvest delays. This would include much of Iowa, southern Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, and much of Illinois. South of this band and across the very northern plains expected to remain mostly dry, so harvest should stay on track in these areas. In South America, we continue to see heavy rains in southern Brazil, threatening the wheat quality there. Rainfall in west central areas of Brazil is expected to be a little bit more erratic, but better prospects for needed rain by the end of the month. So far, planting progress in these areas is very near its historical averages, and light rain at best expected across Argentina. However, just not near enough yet to put much of a dent in ongoing drought conditions here.
Thank you both. Remember, the views and opinions expressed today on this video are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. If you'd like more information about our brokerage services, would like to speak to one of our experts about managing your risks, or would like to open a trading account, please visit www.admis.com.